Imagine waking up one morning in paradise. Your city is thriving. Your streets are filled with three-story homes decorated with beautiful frescoes. You have indoor plumbing, luxuries that won't be seen again for over 1,000 years. And then, without warning, your entire world explodes. In 1600 BC, one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions in human history detonated with the force of several hundred atomic bombs. In seconds, it obliterated an entire island, sent tsunamis crashing across the Mediterranean, and buried one of the ancient world's most sophisticated civilizations beneath 200 feet of volcanic ash. The eruption was so catastrophic that some believe it inspired the legend of Atlantis itself. This is the story of Thera and the civilization that vanished in fire and ash. Before we talk about the end, we need to understand what was lost. Around 3000 BC, a remarkable civilization emerged in the Aegean, the Minoans. Named after the legendary King Minos, this was Europe's first major civilization. They built elaborate palace complexes on Crete, established vast trading networks across the Mediterranean, and created art so beautiful it still takes your breath away today. But their crown jewel? A city on the island of Thera, what we now call Santorini. The settlement we call Akrotiri was unlike anything else in the Bronze Age world. Walking through its streets 3,600 years ago, you would have seen 3- and 4-story buildings, architectural marvels for their time. The walls were decorated with stunning frescoes showing everything from blue monkeys climbing volcanic rocks to ships sailing across azure seas. These weren't just homes, they were masterpieces. The sophistication was staggering. They had advanced drainage systems that wouldn't be matched for millennia, indoor toilets, hot running water. Let that sink in. People in 1600 BC were living with creature comforts that most of medieval Europe couldn't even dream of. Akrotiri was a bustling commercial hub, positioned perfectly along trading routes between Europe and the Middle East. Archaeologists have found pottery from Crete, Egypt, and beyond. This was a cosmopolitan city where cultures met and wealth flowed. The residents stored olive oil and barley in massive ceramic jars. They created intricate furniture that showed incredible craftsmanship. They fished, farmed, and even produced wine, living a life that wouldn't seem entirely foreign to us today. This was a civilization at its peak, prosperous, advanced, thriving. They had no idea they were living on borrowed time. Here's the terrifying truth about Thera. The island itself was a volcano. For thousands of years, this volcano had been going through a cycle. It would erupt violently, collapse into a caldera, a massive circular crater filled with seawater, then slowly rebuild itself over centuries, only to explode again. It was a geological time bomb, ticking away beneath the feet of everyone who lived there. The walls of the caldera formed a nearly complete ring of islands, with Thera and the tiny island of Aspernici as the main land masses. In the center, beneath the sparkling blue waters of the Aegean, magma was accumulating, building pressure, waiting. The people of Akrotiri likely knew their island was volcanic. You can see it in their frescoes, which depict the rocky volcanic landscape. But volcanoes had been quiet for generations. Life was good. Why worry? Then the warnings began. Small earthquakes started to shake the island. At first, perhaps they were barely noticeable, a rattling of pottery, some dust falling from walls. But they grew stronger, more frequent. Buildings started to crack. Some structures collapsed. The ground itself seemed to be shaking apart. The residents weren't fools. They recognized danger when they saw it. Unlike the victims of Pompeii, who would be frozen in place 1,500 years later, the people of Akrotiri had time to evacuate. They packed up their most precious possessions, gold objects, valuable metals, family heirlooms. They loaded boats and fled to nearby islands, probably to Crete, watching their beautiful city from the sea. They thought they'd return once the earthquake stopped. They were wrong. Around 1600 BC, the exact year is still debated by scientists. The volcano finally unleashed hell. The eruption that followed was one of the most violent geological events in recorded human history. To put it in perspective, it was 4 to 5 times more powerful than Krakatoa, the 1883 eruption that killed over 36,000 people and was heard 3,000 miles away. The Thera eruption had a volcanic explosivity index of 7, the second highest category, just below mega-colossal. It ejected somewhere between 28 to 41 cubic kilometers of rock ash and magma into the atmosphere. Imagine the energy of several hundred atomic bombs detonating in a fraction of a second. The eruption happened in terrifying phases. First came the Plinian eruption. Massive columns of ash and pumice shot 20 miles into the sky, turning day into night across the entire region. These columns were so hot, so dense with deadly gas and rock, that they would collapse under their own weight and come screaming back down to Earth at speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. These are called pyroclastic flows, and they're one of the most lethal volcanic phenomena on Earth. Nothing survives them. They're mixtures of superheated gas, ash, and rock that incinerate everything in their path. Wave after wave of these hellish flows swept across Thera, burying Akrotiri under layer upon layer of pumice and ash, ultimately covering the city in up to 200 feet of volcanic debris. When that much rock and water interact violently, you get tsunamis. And not just any tsunamis, mega tsunamis. Imagine a wave taller than a 10-story building racing across the Aegean at hundreds of miles per hour. Coastal towns didn't stand a chance. The tsunami didn't just hit Crete. Evidence suggests it reached Cyprus, Egypt, and other coastlines across the eastern Mediterranean. Entire coastal communities would have been obliterated in minutes. The effects weren't just local, they were global. For over 3,500 years, Akrotiri lay buried beneath volcanic ash, frozen in time like a Bronze Age time capsule. The island was uninhabited for about 1,000 years after the catastrophe. Eventually, new settlers arrived, built new towns, and had no idea a sophisticated civilization lay beneath their feet. In the late 19th century, archaeologists started noticing something interesting. But it wasn't until 1967 that Greek archaeologist Spiridon Marinatos began systematic excavations. Within hours of digging, they found structures, and they were remarkable. Unlike Pompeii, there are no human remains at Akrotiri, no skeletons frozen in their final moments. This confirms what we suspected. The people escaped. They saw the signs and got out, but they left behind an almost perfectly preserved city. Because the volcanic ash buried everything so completely and so quickly, it created an airtight seal. Buildings survived to heights of 3 or even 4 stories, unheard of in normal archaeological sites where usually only foundations remain. It's like walking through a city that was occupied just yesterday, not 3,600 years ago. And here's the thing, only about 10% of the site has been excavated so far. There's still so much we don't know. So much still buried beneath the ash. Today, Santorini is one of the most beautiful and photographed places on Earth. White buildings cling to dramatic cliffs overlooking the deep blue caldera. Tourists flock here by the millions, often having no idea they're walking on the grave of an entire civilization. The volcano isn't dead, by the way. It's just sleeping. If you enjoyed diving into this dark chapter of history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more forgotten stories from humanity's past. And let me know in the comments, do you think Plato's Atlantis was really Thera? Drop your theories below. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, we're all just living on borrowed time.